Who are we in Poppy Playtime? The mysterious character given no name or body, however, is to have been told to have worked at the facility. However, we, unlike many, survived the Hour of Joy, an incident which left no survivors and led to the eventual closing of Poppy Playtime. It's known that before the 90s, the Poppy Playtime brand sold toys and was a giant in the toy industry. But with the apparent decline in toy trends, the company suffered massive losses, and not only that, it turned out the people in charge of Poppy Playtime sought to efficiently spread its capital. To do this, the company hired the Bigger Bodies Initiative, which had one goal: to experiment with humans to make them into toys. The company wanted to replace its workers, and what better way to do this than to create living toys who would obey every bidding given to them. So the experiments went underway, and it wasn't long before the first successful toy was made. This created a long line of toys. Over 1,000 toys were made, with all the toys once being humans. A lot of these experiments we don't know about. However, we know they happened. Majority of these experiments were kids. The question is, would the Poppy Playtime company resort to making employee toys? Robots, in a sense that they work non-stop, and unlike humans, they don't need food, water, or any sense of health standards. Could we, the player, be one of these experiments? A perfect worker, one that the facility manufactured. The first thing we can point at is the training tapes in Chapter 1, and specifically the worker bot, a simple 3D model of a human. During the tape, we see the safety measures put in place, and one which states do not fire at a co-worker. Interestingly, the co-worker is as well depicted as a 3D model. It says this may cause injury and shows the head being pulled off with a pool of blood being left behind. We know that with the way the experiments went, the body was infused with the toy, so this could explain why blood can be seen coming from a toy. The next issue we have with this theory is Project Playtime. We see a squad of 4 going into the facility. However, this happens after the Hour of Joy. So if employee toys were made, they would have long been eaten before the events of Project Playtime. Another thing to point out is the fact that there is no fall damage in Poppy Playtime. This can be chalked up to perhaps the game not being designed with fall damage. But there are heights in the first chapter, so I doubt this to be the case. In the room with the Make-A-Friend machine, there is a high catwalk which holds a power box which the player turns on. If you accidentally fall off this height, you receive no major injury, and you only get stunned for a few seconds. If a human were to fall from this height, and judging from the room and Huggy Wuggy being the size of the door, we can say the catwalk is 2 Huggy Wuggies tall. Huggy Wuggy is around 50 feet in height, so we fell from a 100-foot drop, and this caused barely any damage. To put in perspective, the average survival rate for a 100-foot drop is 0%. That's right, the drop we seemingly barely get affected by isn't survivable. The next thing to point out is the fact we survived the train crash in Chapter 2. During it, the train seemed to sustain massive damage and is seen as a complete wreck by the events of Chapter 3. We, the player, somehow were able to survive this, being taken by Catnap and thrown down the trash compactor. Not only that, but in Chapter 2 and Chapter 3, Poppy refers to us as being very capable and being too good to let go. It's as if we are somewhat of a rare specimen, potentially being hinted as being a one-of-a-kind, a toy capable of taking out the monsters in the facility. Another thing is the time duration between the chapters. We survive seemingly without food or water for all 3 chapters, and during this time, with the amount of running we the player have done, it seems to barely fatigue us. If every chapter takes place in the span of a day, and this albeit is pretty optimistic as it's unknown how long we are even down there for. Anyways, 3 days without water or food is stretching it, as a human can live up to 3 weeks without food. However, without water as well, the body cannot survive after more than 4 days. With how long we've been down there in the depths of the Playtime facility, it is highly unlikely, if we were playing a normal human, that we could survive. With that out of the way, let's take your attention to the Home Sweet Home level in Chapter 3, specifically the sequence in which Catnap uses his gas to hallucinate us. During this scene, a frequent ringing can be heard coming from a phone. If we pick it up, a news reporter addresses an incident revolving around Elliot Ludwig in the man behind Poppy Playtime. It goes,
"Tragic news this morning. As of 9:45 a.m., local authorities report that the body of a young boy has been found on the estate of the late Elliot Ludwig, an esteemed toy maker and originator of the Playtime company. At this time, an identity for the child awaits official confirmation. Found in an upstairs bedroom in a large duffel bag, officers on scene report that the remains appear to have been disturbed."
The body of the victim was not identified, so this raises a few questions. For one, who was it? Well, let's think about where we are. This is a hallucination that we, the player, are having. We know from a future sequence, Catnap can, to an extent, put memories in our minds, but mainly this is an extension of our own mind. So why would this specific phone call be present? Is Catnap attempting to reveal a new toy, one we haven't seen before, or is Catnap showing us a memory we want to forget, tormenting us knowing all the while we want to keep this hidden? No, we aren't Elliot Ludwig. We don't know much about Elliot besides he was a kind and giving man and only wanted what was best for his business. In exchange for his humanity, he achieved what many dreamed of. The next phone call is a ploy which Playtime uses to cover up Elliot's name. The phone call after that, however, we hear some interesting information.
Despite Playtime's proclamation of Ludwig's innocence, many believe his reclusive and mysterious nature displayed over the previous decades lends suspicion to this claim. When questioned, Ludwig's neighbors indicated that he would often return to his home in strange hours of the night and depart again before sunrise. Some believed he was sick. Others that, don't move an inch. Playtime Co., it seems, intends to keep Elliot's name within its brand regardless. What is sure to be a long legal battle will follow.
Don't move an inch. Interesting words which raises a question. Why would this phrase play? Do we, the player, somehow have an attachment to these words? What I like to think is this is coming directly from Elliot Ludwig, directly after our experiment. Further on in the level, we come to a weirdly shaped room, a loop in which a distorted audio can be heard. In good old fashion, if we reverse this audio, a disturbing message can be played.
Destroy. Your presence was demanded 10 years ago and you didn't show up. 8/8/1995. You were supposed to be here. Why weren't you here? You missed the event. You missed the meeting. You missed the party. You have no right to be here.
It's saying we missed the event and our presence was demanded. Of course, referring to the hour of joy. There are two ways in which this quote makes sense. One is it's saying we as a worker were to have been there to be eaten. The other is we are a toy and our presence was demanded in order to fulfill Prototype's will. Why weren't we there? This is a question which we still don't have the answer to, but later on a room can be seen, presumably the very one we worked in. On the wall behind where the computer is, it says "Guilt haunts you," which is a first hint to what could have happened. We possess some sort of guilt, specifically toward the hour of joy and the events which followed. It then makes sense why we came back to the Playtime facility years later, to undo a wrong. Perhaps it also could mean guilt haunts you in reference to the Prototype, which we know Catnap is very close to. Potentially the Prototype mocking us for our weakness in not fulfilling its plans. Interestingly, the next phone call repeats,
"Get up." get up.
Why this phrase? We getting up implying us to try win this mental battle? Don't move and get up sounds oddly what someone would say when conducting a procedure. This all the more backs up us being a toy. Potentially, we could have been an experiment to make the perfect worker, parallel to the prototype to be the perfect toy. However, we grew too conscious and decided for some reason to leave the facility. An interesting theme in the chapters is the appearance of the prototype. It oddly spares us, which we know it can easily kill us as it is by far the most powerful toy, but it doesn't. It lets us live, and in both instances where it did show up, it removes the threat from us. The prototype is sparing us. It for some reason wants us to get deeper into the facility. Could the prototype want a body in which it can mimic a human? A body which isn't fully human but part toy. Our body could be the specific body the prototype desires. It's waiting for us to be there at the right moment, for it to attempt to transfer its consciousness with ours. The reason Catnap spared us is it was directly told to by the prototype. The prototype needs us alive, so when Catnap ends up wanting to kill us, the prototype ends Catnap as to further preserve the player. Again, this is all theory, but with the knowledge of what the Playtime company did, it would make a lot of sense if they attempted to create the perfect worker. To come back to that tape, a young boy went missing and was later found dead in Elliot Ludwig's mansion. I think we are that child. Our consciousness being transferred into a toy, and in the years following the incident, we grew with the toy's consciousness, and eventually, to have closure, we came back to the facility to finally understand the secrets of Poppy Playtime. Anyways, that was my theory of who the player might be. I know it's a little all over the place, but I really tried to make something not only possible, but to really make something interesting. On screen here is the Hour of Joy and the events that followed. It is a video on this Poppy Playtime series I've got going on, so check it out if you want to. And until next time, take it easy and goodbye.